Hi, sixth grade accelerated students. This is going to be our Zoom meeting for the week. I know there was a lot of conflict with several of our students. So I figured if I just go ahead and record it, then you guys can just watch it whenever is convenient for you. So this week you have looked at using exponents, and you've also looked at writing algebraic expressions. And pretty much I think that's about it. So I'm going to go through some problems with you, and hopefully if you've had any questions this week, this will answer them. So let me share my screen with you. All right, so like I said, this is for the week of October 13th through 16th. So hopefully you guys got my PowerPoint and you can go along with me. So the first thing is where you have an expression 6 times 6 times 6 times 6 times, that's hard to say, you guys. So the directions say to write this expression in exponential form. So basically, powers or exponents show multiplication a certain number of times. So we have the product of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sixes. So I would write this 6 to the power of 5. Now that's going to be a really large number because 6 times 6 is 36. We would multiply that by 36 and that by 6. So exponents create large products because you're multiplying, even though you're like, well, 6 is not that big of a number. However, 6 multiplied together 5 times is 7,776. So exponents create very large products. But anyway, it didn't even ask for this part. I just want to make sure you guys know what exponential form is. So let's look at number 2. So the mistake that a lot of people make when using exponents is they think in their brains, well, this is 5 times 2, or 5 twice is 10, right? Well, it's not 5 times 2, it's 5 times 5. So 5 squared, you could either say this is 5 squared or 5 to the power of 2 is 25. Letter B, this is telling us to multiply 3 together 3 times. So 3 times 3 times 3, well, 3 times 3 is 9, and 9 times 3 is 27. So I could say that this is either 3 to the power of 3, or I could say 3 cubed. 3 cubed. And there was another type of problem. I'm going to go ahead and do it over here. So let's say I have a cube, right? Say I have a cube, and I want to find the volume of it. Well, how do you find the volume of a cube? Well, you would multiply the length times the width times the height. Well, the characteristics that would make it a cube is that all the sides are equal. So if the height is 4 and the width is 4 and the length is 4, you're going to multiply 4 times 4 times 4. Or we could say 4 cubed, right? So that word goes along with finding the volume of a three-dimensional figure, which is in the shape of a cube. So 4 times 4 times 4 is 64, I believe. Yeah. So 64 units. So that's why we say 3 cubed, or this would be 4 cubed, right? All right, so anyway, going back to letter C, number 2, letter C, we're going to multiply 2 together 4 times. Well, 2 times 2 is 4 times 4. So we see that 4 raised to the power of 4, 2 raised to the power of 4 is 16. Or you could say 2 to the 4th. You could say that as well. All right, now letter D. So basically, we have 2 that we're going to raise to the power of 3 and 3 that we're going to raise to the power of 3. So when I write this without my parentheses, I'm going to think of this as this problem right here. So 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. And we already know that 3 cubed is 27. So that is 2/3 cubed. 2/3 to the 3rd power is 8/27. All right, so letter or excuse me, number 3, it wants us to evaluate. So we're going to think, okay, what is 5 times 5 times 5? 5 times 5 is 25, and 25 times 5 is 125, plus, what is 6 squared, or 6 times 6? 6 squared is 36. So finally, we're going to add 125 plus 36. Oh, I didn't clear my calculator. 125 plus 36 is 161. Okie dokie. And these awesome calculators right here, guys. These TI 30XS multi-view calculators will do exponents for you. So if you're going to buy a calculator that will last you a long time, you'll use it in 7th grade and 8th grade and through high school, I suggest that you get this calculator, the TI 30XS multi-view calculator. They're about 12 bucks at Target. Don't buy one of those $100 calculators. You don't need one. And this is awesome because it has not only an X squared button, X squared, it also has a caret button. It looks like it's an arrow pointing up where you can raise anything to any power you want. For example, I could do that problem that we just saw. I would say 5, and then I'm going to hit this caret button right here, raise to the power of 3. So on my screen, you see 5 raised to the power of 3. And then I'm going to arrow to the right to get out of that exponent. So now it's flashing next to the 5 instead of up next to the 3. I'm going to hit the plus button, obviously, and then I'm going to plug in 6 squared. So then I'm going to use that X squared button, or I could still use my caret button, raised to the power of 2, or I'm going to use my X squared button. So look at my 6. I got a little 2 right there, see that? And then I just hit enter, and my calculator tells me the answer is 161. So good calculator. If you need me to send you a message telling you which one to buy, I will do that. All right, moving on. So what about 9 squared? What is 9 times 9? 81. And what is 3 to the 4th power? Well, we already know that 3 to the 3rd power is 27. And 27 times 3 is 81. So guess what? 9 squared minus 3 to the 4th is? It's 0. 81 minus 81 is 0. All right, moving on. So let's look at number 4. Those get a little longer. Now don't forget your order of operations, which we remember the phrase, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, right? You heard that before? The P stands for parentheses. We always do parentheses first. So we're going to think of please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So parentheses, exponents. And then I multiply and divide in order from left to right. And I also add and subtract in order from left to right, whichever comes first in the problem. So parentheses first, I'm going to subtract 14 minus 5. So I'm going to think, what is 3 to the 4th divided by, well, 14 minus 5 is 9. Oops, this thing is not like 9s. All right, so after I've done parentheses, yep, check parentheses, now I do exponents. So now I got to do 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Well, we just did the last problem, didn't we? We said 3 to the 4th power is 81. So I'm going to think 81 divided by 9, because in this problem, division comes first. So I have to do division before multiplication because it's first in the problem from left to right. So 81 divided by 9 is 9. And then finally, the last thing to do on this problem is multiply 9 times 2. And my final answer is 18. Okie dokie. All right. Look at letter B. I'm going to do parentheses first. So the first thing I do is 10 minus 4. So 10 minus 4 is 6. Then I bring all this other stuff down. I'm going to go ahead and think of this, though, as 1 to the 3rd over 2 to the 3rd. Because a lot of people will just put that 3 on the 1 and forget to put it on the 2. All right, so after I do parentheses, I'm going to do exponents, right? So what is 6 squared? 6 squared is 36. So 1 to the third power is 1, because 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. And then 2 to the third power, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. All right, so I've done my exponents. Now what do I do? Well, now I multiply and divide, whichever comes first in the problem. Well, in this problem, division's coming first, right? So I'm going to do 7 plus, what's 36 divided by 4? 9. And then I'm going to multiply that by 1/8. Right? Yep. Uh-oh, I'm going to get a decimal. I hope I did this problem right. I hope I wrote it down right. 36 divided by 4 is 9. So I have 7 plus 9. Oh, you know what? I skipped this whole part right here. Oh my goodness. Did I? No, I did not. No, I didn't. Okay, I'm right. I'm sorry. All right, so anyway, I'm going to have a, I'm gonna leave it in fraction form. Why did my pen stop working? All right, so anyway, so now I'm gonna multiply straight across. So if I think of this as 9 times 1, I get 9, and 1 times 8 is 8. So finally I get 7 plus 9/8. Well, I can use this awesome calculator to also add fractions. So I'm just gonna stick it in my calculator. So this N over D button right here, N over D, it put a little fraction on my screen. I'm gonna put 9, and then I'm gonna arrow down to the denominator, see that? 9/8, and then I'm going to right click to get out of that denominator. I'm gonna right arrow click, and then I'm gonna put +7. And it tells me my answer is 65 over 8. So 65 over 8. Well, of course, 8 will go into 65 8 times with 1 left over. So that's my answer. I don't think I wrote that problem down. I wasn't supposed to get a fraction, but I think I did it right. 36 divided by 4 is 9. 9 times 1/8. Okay, so we're going to leave it alone. All right, now look at the rest of this screen. You have all these word phrases that go with certain operations. So when I say operations, I'm talking about adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. So you need to be familiar with these terms. You should know that added to, more than, increased by, find the sum of, find the total, all of that goes with addition. Subtraction terms, minus, less than, difference, take away, fewer than, all of those goes with subtraction. All right, so you guys can read those. So you do need to be familiar with these terms, and you need to make sure you know what operation it matches. So probably the most popular would be sum, more than, added to. All these are pretty straightforward. Less than for subtraction is very popular that's used quite a bit. Difference, you definitely need to know the word difference. You need to know the word product for multiplication. For division, you need to know the word quotient. All right, and of course, all of these describe when you would use a variable. A number, some number, a variable, an unknown number. And our exponent terms are cubed, squared, and raised to the power of. So number 5, 6 added to a number. What would that look like? Well, for my variable, I can pick any letter I want. The most popular ones are usually an X or a Y, but technically you can use any letter you want to for an unknown number, which we call a variable. So 6 added to a number would be 6 added to a number. Easy peasy, right? 5 squared. Well, that means 5 times 5, doesn't it? So 5 raised to the power of 2, 5 squared. The product of 6 and some number. Product means multiplication. So I would write 6 times n. Well, this is when we get away from using an X to represent multiplication. Because if you have a variable, in an expression and you use an X to show multiplication, that's very confusing. So either you're going to use a dot 6 times n, you could use parentheses, you could use 6 times n this way. It's not going to take my n yet, is. But probably the most popular way to write it is just to squish that 6 and n together, and that shows multiplication. The product of 6 and a number. And then here we have the word quotient. So 25 divided by 5, you could put 25 divided by 5 this way, or you can make it look like a fraction. You could put 25 over 5. 25 divided by 5. You need to know that means find the quotient of. All right, so if you look at the top of the screen here, it says order is very important. It is. So especially in division and subtracting. So adding and multiplying, if I add 2 plus 3, I'm going to get the same answer if I turn it around and add 3 plus 2, right? However, with division and subtracting, if you reverse the order of the numbers, you're going to not get the same answer. For example, 20 divided by 4, 20 divided by 4 is 5, which is not the same as 4 divided by 20. 4 divided by 20 is 0.5. Those are different numbers, right? If someone owed you $5 and gave you 50 cents, would you go, same thing? No, you'd be saying, where's my money? All right, so that's why with subtraction and division, especially those, you have to have the order correct. So when you write these algebraic expressions, if you write them backwards, then you're going to literally miss them. You're going to get them wrong. So if I say the difference of 10 and 7, you have to write the 10 first. Because 7 minus 10 is not 3. It's negative 3, right? 10 minus 7 is 3. The quotient of 20 and 4, we just did that one. The 20 comes first. The quotient of 20 and 4. You can't write the 4 first. That's not right. Now, there are some terms that so if you notice 6 and 7, the order of the numbers in the word phrase matches the order of the numbers in the expression. But there are a couple of phrases that always will have you reverse the order of the numbers from how it's written. The most popular one is less than. That's the one you're going to see more often than any other word phrase. But you also need to realize that subtracted from and fewer than tells you to take that first number that's written and move it to the end. So 5 less than something. 5 less than what? A variable. Well, you start with your variable and you subtract 5 from it. So this is the correct order for the phrase less than. 5 less than a variable. You have to start with a variable and take 5 away. All right, another term is subtracted from. 20 subtracted from, 20 taken from a number. Once again, you start with your variable and you subtract 20 from it. So you're going to have to pay attention to these 3 phrases, okay? Now, more than is also addition, which would be reverse order, but like I said, if you add 2 plus 3, it equals the exact same thing as 3 plus 2. So the order is not as important as subtraction and division. So be careful, be careful. All right, so let's practice writing some of these as expressions. These are word phrases we're writing as expressions. 3 less than, that means take the 3 and move it to the end, right? 3 less than what? Well, the sum of a number and 9. So the sum of a number and 9 would be a number plus 9, right? That means addition, sum. And then 3 less than that. So 3 has to come at the very end because you see that phrase less than. Number 11, the sum of 4 and what? The sum, that means addition. The sum of 4, so I'm going to start 4 plus the sum of 4 and, here we go, the product of some number and 8. The product of some number and 8. So that just means 8 times a variable, right? So there we go. The sum of 4 and the product of some number and 8. There we go. Number 12, the product of 5, the product, what does that mean? Multiplication. The product of 5 and what? And the quantity, the whole quantity, 40 minus a number. Well, that tells us that we're multiplying 5 times the quantity. That means that we're going to put something in parentheses because we're going to keep this second part together. The quantity 40 minus a number. That's it. That's how you write that. And if you don't have those parentheses, it's going to be wrong. Because if I wrote it 5 times 40, 40 minus x, when I do this operation, I would only multiply 5 times 40. Well, that's not what it says. I'm going to multiply 5 times all of this. That's why it has to go in parentheses. Number 13, a number to the power of 5. A number to the power of 5 times 3. Or, since it's multiplication, I can always pull that 3 in the front because multiplication, the order is not important. It doesn't matter as much. So both of these expressions are equivalent. Whoops, I wrote a 3 though. They're not equivalent, and unless I write the right exponent. Okay. The product of 2, the product of, so that means multiplication, 2 and what? The sum of a number and 4. The product of 2 and, I'm multiplying 2 times something, the sum of a number and 4. The sum of a number and 4. Now look at 15. It's almost exactly like 14, but it's different. The product of 2 and a number, so you got to kind of read it until it makes sense to you. The product of 2 and a number plus 4. The product of 2 and a number, that's the product of 2 and a number, right? Plus 4. All right, so you take a minute, look at 14 and 15, find out the difference in them and why they look different. And the way I wrote them is exactly the way you have to write your answers. If not, it's going to be wrong. Okay? All right, let's go on to the next slide. All right, now new terms for you would be these 4 words. I imagine that you haven't seen these before in math, but you need to know them. Oh, I got a Zoom meeting. I got to go. All right, so you do need to know these words. The word term, factor, coefficient, and constant. Okay, so one thing you need to know about term is that terms are separated by addition and subtraction terms are separated by addition and subtraction signs. So right here I have 1 term, 2 terms, 3 terms. I have 3 terms. Now factor means, oh, in this one I also have 1 term, 2 terms, 3 terms. 1, 2, 3. This one I have 1 term. Now this second, look how long this term is. It's long, but this whole thing, negative 7x squared y, is a term because inside here there's no adding or no adding or subtraction signs. So this has 4 terms because those are the ones that are separated by addition and subtraction signs. Now factor just means numbers that are being multiplied. So 6 and x are factors of 6x. 5 and y are both factors that are being multiplied in the term 5y. Okay, negative 7 is a constant, it stands alone. So all of these numbers not attached to a variable are constants. So on this top one, our constant is negative 7. On this one right here, our constant is 3. So it's a positive 3. If it's a positive 3, I don't write the sign, but if it's a negative 3, I definitely have to write, negative 7 or negative anything, I have to write the sign. And then the constant on the last one is what? It's 5, right? So that's a constant. And then the coefficient is a number that is being multiplied by a variable. It's the number. So what's being multiplied by x? The 6. 6 is a coefficient. What's being multiplied by y? 5. -7 is a constant. It's not a coefficient. What's being multiplied by a? 2. So 2 is the coefficient. Now, I want you to look at this right here. This is -y. Well, this really does have a coefficient. Of course, it's not negative, but what multiplied by y equals -y? Well, -1 times y is -y. So the coefficient of -y is -1. You need to know that, okay? The coefficient, if I had -m, what's the coefficient? The coefficient's -1. And technically, if I have positive m, the coefficient of positive m is +1. But you're rarely asked if it's a +1, but you will be asked if it's a -1. What's the coefficient of this whole term right here? 4. What is the coefficient of this term, including that sign? -7. What's the coefficient of x? 1, +1. And 5 is a constant. It's not a coefficient. Okay? All right, guys. Well, I have some 8th graders waiting for me in a Zoom. I didn't realize what time it was, but I hope that this has helped you. I hope everyone's had a great week. And if you need me at all, you know how to contact me. Hope everyone has a great day, and I will catch you later.